everyone. So I am here. I'm Kara Garland, the founder of the Salvation Foundation, and we are going to be sharing another podcast with you today. I have my dear friend Vanessa that is here as well, and we really wanted to talk a little bit today about sex trafficking and domestic violence and how they go hand in hand, and how just the same as I've mentioned before in many of my posts on social media, even the porn industry and the violence that is displayed there and the sexual violence that is desensitizing us, overall just as a society, and has been for so many years. There's so many things that directly correlate to sex trafficking, and there's so many branches of what contributes and fuels sex trafficking and the illicit enterprise that encompasses it. So I have Vanessa here with me today, and we're going to touch on that subject a little bit further, but I'd really like for you to get to know her on a more of a personal level, and we're going to talk a little bit about how, it's just how God works and how he put us on the same path to
fight the same battle.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I know that you guys have been familiar with my podcast being a little more of a table talk style, and it's going to be no different today. So we're really just going to share a little bit about ourselves on a personal level, but mainly I'd really like you to get to know Vanessa, because she's becoming a very integrated part of the foundation, and it's going to grow organically at a very rapid rate, as I've already seen and as you guys will begin to see. And so I can't wait for the future of what is to come. So Vanessa, I would really love for you to just share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay, so we'll make a very long story very short. Sexual trauma from a very young age. I was molested by my mother's boyfriend after she divorced my dad. State of California actually took me away from her. She fought very hard to get me back, but my mother was still fighting her own demons, so failed me in a lot of ways when it came to healing. And then now, recently, through this whole COVID thing, I've been dealing with traumas that are resurfacing or that are surfacing for the first time, because everyone thinks sex trafficking and they think of like a 21-year-old beautiful woman, and she goes on vacation and she never returns. But there are children that are being trafficked literally from birth, like their umbilical cord is still attached. And I feel so, I gravitated towards you because I feel like you get it, and we're going to be raw and we're going to be real. And, my mom got me back at, 4, almost turning 5. And then she sends me to Texas, and then my biological grandfather molests me. And that actually just surfaced recently. So we were briefly talking earlier over lunch about healing. And I feel like when I met you, it's like I knew you. It's like our souls identified with each other, and our stories were like I said, bookends. Yeah. It's so similar. And, people always give the statistic of why people are trafficked. Oh, they're runaways, or they're this or that. Like, what are they running away from? I mean, I was put into foster care and all those things for a very brief stint, but it royally, excuse my language, fucked me up. Mm-hmm. And then, from those instances, it's like I had a scarlet letter on my forehead. Then my 8th grade PE teacher molests me, and then I get raped in college, and then I turn to addiction, and then I get pregnant by the man who almost took my life and beat me. And all of it's linked because it all started my innocence and my perception of the world around me. I was robbed of that at such a young age, and that security of watching my parents fight in front of me, and the screaming and the throwing things. I was 3 years old. I remember it vividly. I remember what my house smells like, what it looks like.
And isn't it crazy? And there's so much to be said about this, about trauma bonding. And that's a whole different podcast for you guys that we'll address at some point in our long list of topics of podcasts. But the trauma bonding that's associated with those things, and as crazy as it is, us victims and survivors, we are groomed during those traumatic instances to actually and this is what predators do as well, to groom these women and children. And so many people ask, well, why did you stay? Why were you there? Or why were trafficked victims? Why did they go back? Or why did they fall back into that? I mean, it's like they were trying to get away from the life, but then they go right back into it. And it's because there's this false sense of security, even in the chaos and even in the abuse.
That's all they know.
The trauma bonding that's there, you're literally groomed psychologically into thinking that even as bad as it is with a predator, it's worse without them, because here they are and they're providing you at least some food and at least a little bit of shelter. And whether you're in a relationship, because there's relational grooming as well, whether it be a parent or a spouse, significant other, or
a friend. Could be a friend.
Or a captor. It's all the same. It's the same psychological manipulation to make you the victim and make you stay there, but then make them out to be the savior, even though they're the ones that are putting you into harm's way. So there's a very in-depth psychological approach that has to be taken when working with victims and survivors, and that has to be considered as well. And that goes into the whole part about prosecuting and not being able to prosecute predators because of the psychological aspect of how they've groomed their victims. But there's this whole component, and that's another podcast, but there's a whole component to treating and handling victims a certain way to build and establish that trust in a place where they trust absolutely no one, but then they're also fearful for their lives and their safety if they do speak out. So we're not able to prosecute, even in my conversations with the local DA here in Riverside County, they're not able to prosecute like they would like to be able to prosecute, because the victims don't even want to speak up because they're fearful that they will be killed or their family will be hurt. So, that goes to, it speaks directly to what you and I have been through with how much we've harbored and how much we've held in and going through these different abuses and traumas. And, to the extent that we've gone where you and I have both looked death right in the face with what we've been through.
Multiple times.
And then storing that trauma in our bodies, that unresolved trauma that either is so buried that it affects the way that you live and the way that you talk and the way that you walk and the way that you conduct yourself, or it's unresolved to the point where it's there and you just continue to push it. You push it to the side, you suppress it, you just put on your brave face and you persevere and you move forward. But there comes a time where you and I are, and I think that's why we relate to one another so much and we share this same energy space, is because you and I have been on a healing path for some time now, to where we realize that those traumas need to be identified and dealt with in a certain form and fashion for us to be able to do the work that we're doing right now. So, the last 6 years, and it's crazy, just, all of these
6 years,
the things that run parallel between Vanessa and I, we keep laughing today because there's just so much. And we've both been in this space of knowledge and self-education of human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, for the last 6 years. And I feel like there's so much I want to say, but I would really like you to share where it is that your heart is and what because I know that so many of you know where my heart is, but to have someone that's sitting here with me and that is going alongside me to continue this momentum and propel the works that we're doing here at the foundation forward, like it really hits home for me. And I was actually emotional today in the office, and I guess I try to hide that and harness that and suppress that too, but I'm learning to process through those emotions, because it's actually really healthy, where before I was always taught that I had to be strong and I couldn't feel those things, and if I feel those things, then that means that I have to face those fears and those realities and those traumas and those hurts and pains that most of us are absolutely terrified of facing and feeling. So
absolutely,
getting in touch with those emotions that I felt today, it just pulled so much out of me to have somebody that's on the same path but is in this for the right reasons, because there's so many people, as you know.
Get out of my head. That's what I was going to tell you.
No surprise.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that are not in this for the right reasons.
No.
So
They're doing it for the gram. They're doing it for the likes.
That.
Yeah, they're doing it for the gram. They're doing it for the likes. Now, Pizzagate, Frazzle Drip, all these like buzzwords are like household words now. Like everybody knows about it. And if they say they don't know about it, whatever, they're living under a rock. But yes, there's been multiple people that have wanted to partner with me, get in my head and find out, because I coach physically for a very long time. I can't now because of the COVID. Can't go into these sanctuaries anymore and have that, close bond with them anymore, where I'm helping them move through their traumas. And like you said, to touch on what you said earlier, you have to go through it to get past it. You can't take a scenic route. No. You can't go on Waze and be like, avoid the feels. You have to feel it. And I feel like right now, people are using their platforms because they're not going to gyms. They're not, these, people, these influencers. They're now using human trafficking, or the Black Lives Matter movement, or whatever movement they're using. Right. Now they're using it to gain their audience. But like we've said, we've been on this path and this journey for quite some time, and it's dark and it's ugly. And as I was saying earlier, it helps bring things that you didn't even know were in you to the surface. And I just felt aligned with you, because it wasn't about, we both basically redesigned our pages. We took away our personal aspect of our lives and our selfies, or whatever you want to call it. And because that's not going to save children. That's not going to save victims. That's not going to educate the masses. And, for a minute there, I felt pressured and get these DMs. We miss your workout videos, or we miss your makeup selfies. And, are you still alive? Did your IG get jacked, or, what's going on? And it just made me realize that we're living in a very superficial world, but what we're dealing with, this is ancient. This has been around since the beginning of time. People think it just happened. No, it hasn't. Right now, we are, whatever you want to call it, the Great Awakening. It's such a brilliant time to be alive. How exciting, history is being made right now in many ways. And I feel like every dark situation becomes light. And because of my daughter's dad almost taking my life, and because of my sexual abuse in it, because I was raped, and because, me dabbling with alcohol, drugs, and all the things that I did, I'm able to touch and really identify with these people, these survivors, victims, whatever you want to call them. But there's a reason why, it all starts from childhood. Not everybody can identify with being an athlete, or identify with being, Black Lives Matter. I'm not African American. I can't identify with this, but I can identify with being a child. I can identify with being a woman. And yes, it's happening to men and boys, but women and children, they, let's bring up Trump for a second. As he said, the most vulnerable. We are emotional beings. And I feel, I've coached male victims, and I feel for them, because they don't want to talk about it, because how can a boy or how can a man be raped? Well, they can. They can. And I feel like we're approaching this new age where there will be I already have zero tolerance for people that can't educate themselves and have a victim mentality. And I feel that if we can, save these people, you're going to have this team of people working to combat this, undercover, sting operations, and all these. You need people in the back end, and that's what I did. People to help them realize that, yes, you have dealt with horrific things, and it's going to forever change you, but you can change the world with that pain. And like I was telling you earlier, I feel like I've been refined, I've been burnt, I've been melted down to practically nothing, and now at almost 40, I've been praying for somebody like you, and I'm not going to get emotional, but I want to. I've been praying for somebody like you to come into my life and come beside me, because this is a tough, space to be in. And it's so dark, and hours and hours.
And it brings it all back.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I was sharing with Vanessa is in my work with survivors, because I do work with them almost every single day on different levels, but I have not, and I get the same feedback from survivors. Our healing is being bounced off of one another, and it's this synergy of discovery and reflection and identification of those feelings, and it's learning to feel. So it's unlearning all of the different characteristics that we've built up about ourselves, all the different beliefs that we've either been fed to believe, made to believe, manipulated to believe, things that we have told ourselves about ourselves from childhood. I work with mentors and coaches, outside on a general basis, but for myself as well. I mean, this work demands for that. And I have finally turned the corner over the last couple of years of self-healing and going inward to identify all that I'm holding still within myself that needs to come to the surface, so that I can be free from all of that pain and trauma myself, so that I can then identify with the victim or survivor that's sitting on the other side of the table from me and really be there for them. And I've truly healed, so I can then guide them along their own healing process. But honestly, because of those severe cases that are sitting on the other side of the room from me and sharing their own experiences, it has pulled so much out of me that I didn't remember that it was there. I didn't know that my body had blocked out that trauma. Yeah. There are memories coming up. There are things that are coming to me in dreams. I mean, visions literally flashing in front of my face that I didn't remember from before. There's so much that's being stirred up. So my healing process has catapulted and is moving at lightning speed right now. And I know that it's, by osmosis that this is happening. And I know that God has his hand in absolutely everything that's going on right now. So, just being able to be a sounding board and a solid voice for these victims and survivors. It's very rare for somebody to be able to not only acknowledge, but then hear and be someone that is trusting and trustworthy enough for a survivor to open up on even the smallest level, but then to get into the depths of what is being shared, and to even be at a place where I'm writing a book for a survivor that's been through every trauma you can imagine, every single little detail that she remembers, down to smells, the temperature of the room, textures and tastes, and absolutely everything. She's recalling everything to a level that she has never recalled before. So this place and this space that we're in, and the work that we're doing, and the work that will be done, without going into all of that, I simply wanted to show you guys the passion and the experience and the real life trauma and healing that's going on behind the scenes of this organization, so that you guys understand where our hearts are. We've been through, and I say this completely and fully, we have been through so much of of similar experiences in our past, and we've only known each other for such a short time, but when you connect with somebody on so many deep levels of highs and lows, and the things that we have put ourselves through and the things that we've been put through, with experiencing having absolutely nothing and then having everything and then being in between. And speaking for myself, I am at the most humble place in my life that I have ever been.
Absolutely.
Working with these victims and survivors and being in this work all day, every day, my life is completely shifted. The position I held before I decided that this was my life's work last year, I'm changing by the day, and I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
When you are finally on that path of purpose and it's aligning and all of the pieces of the puzzle are being put together, and it is right in front of you that this is the work.
Tunnel vision.
Yes, this is the work that you and I
That's
were created
This is what we're doing.
to do.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I was little, it's so funny, because I didn't even it didn't click until just recently when I heard myself saying this, but I remembered a memory. I think I had to have been, I don't know, maybe 11, 12, somewhere around there. I remember somebody asked me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to have all the money in the world so that I could go help people. And okay, I don't have all the money in the world, but I do need donations. So if you feel inclined, please.
Absolutely.
The thing that we're looking for most is funding right now, but it's to help people. And living this, looking back at what I've been through for so long, even in the midst of my darkest times, the darkest times in my life, where I just felt like I was at rock bottom and it couldn't get any worse and I couldn't hurt anymore and I couldn't go through any worse pain than what I was going through.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
But even in those dark moments, didn't you feel in that turmoil there was still a little bit of peace?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Again.
So, but I'm just saying, like,
Yes.
my face bashed in by my ex-husband, then going into another relationship where it was, sex was used as a tool and a pawn, and it was narcissist, and all the things that we've gone through.
Yes.
Even in that, it's like I knew
that was meant for something.
Exactly.
It's almost like, okay, I'm going through this. Okay, God, I know you're here. Maybe I'm not talking to you right now because I'm hurting and because I'm confused and I don't like the space I'm in and I'm scared and I don't know what's next and I don't know how much more pain I'm going to have to endure before I see the light at the end of the tunnel. But even in those darkest moments, I knew that there was a reason for what I was going through.
Absolutely.
And here we are now.
Yeah.
In this podcast studio with each other.
What I was telling you earlier is, like, I was a makeup artist for 20 years and, you've competed, you were in the fitness world, personal trainer, all these things, but it's like we both holistically take approach to things. We are going to be able to take these survivors, these victims, and we are going to be able to give them a skill set. We are going to be able to change their life. We are going to be able to I'll teach them how to apply makeup, how to articulate at a job interview. We'll get them in the wellness center. We'll get them a skill set. Do they know how to read? Counseling.
Build their self-worth, their self-confidence.
Totally. So when they resurface in the world, they are a brand new being. Because most of these people, amen, sister, because most of these people, the reason they go back and they get groomed again or taken is because they've never filled that void. And it's never, people always say you got to fill it. You do. I don't think it's ever completely full. I believe healing is a lifelong journey.
Absolutely.
But I do believe there's a point where you're satisfied. Say this is the cup, and it's never going to be all the way here, but here, where this could sustain you. And I feel that a lot of people know that they can fall back on their body, and that's why I choose to not sexualize anything on my page. I'm not judging anybody who uses their platform, though, however they want to do it, but I refuse to be that person, because thinking back when I did that, I was doing that because I was still trying to fill the wrong void. I was still trying to get that approval from man, women, whatever, that validation, sexualizing everything. And I think that's why I identified with Marilyn and Betty Page and like all the women that I gravitated toward. They were these beautiful beings, but there was this darkness about them, but they were also very powerful. And so I don't want to use that. I don't knock them for doing it, or any woman who does or male who does, but I think that's why I am so excited to, do this lifelong journey with you, because we are the same. We don't use our children. We don't use our marriages. We don't use our bodies. We don't use anything. And I think we're both beautiful women. I do. I try to look at you and I think you're gorgeous, and you feel the same way about me. But that's not going to save babies. That's not going to save the world. And
and I think that we can relate to the people that are in that space because we've been in that space.
Absolutely.
But
100%.
Being where we were at that time, I can, and I know that I can speak for you with this as well, but I know this space in which people hold that are still in that place.
Absolutely.
And so there's nothing to be said, but everybody is on this search for affirmations, approval, self-identification, and love. And I think that's what we're all searching for at different levels. And there comes a point to where you find all of that within yourself when you can truly heal from everything that you've been through. And then all of that you pour back into yourself because it's a self-worth. It's self-love. And not on a scale of that love is more than the love that I have for God.
Yeah, no.
But God tells us to love ourselves in a form and in a fashion to where we don't live in fear, and we live because
we're vibrating higher.
Exactly. It's the vibrating at a higher frequency, and we could go on about that too. But at this point, the highest vibration is love, and I feel that that's even with the hardened heart that I had for so many years, because I just didn't trust anybody, and I was this little girl that was just hurt, and I was hiding behind that strength and that hard facade of perfection, strive for perfection, and then they won't be able to see the broken me inside, and they won't be able to see the pain that I've been through, and they won't think that I'm lame or that I'm just this hurt, sad little girl. No, I need to be perfect. And if I'm perfect, and if I'm successful, and if I hold myself accountable for everything I do, and I strive for that perfection all the time, then they won't know the shame and the guilt that I feel for the things that I didn't do to myself, but the things that I was put through, and how I was abused. And it just becomes this vicious cycle when you're stuck in that, looking for identification and validation through those outlets, that that person wouldn't be healed enough to help somebody that is hurting 100 times worse than they are, given their own vulnerabilities and their own fears and insecurities. There's no way that somebody that isn't a healed vessel in all of those other areas, even at the smallest level, the most shallow level of that, the depths of all of that have to be healed and completely sealed with love to be able to then pour out into a victim or a survivor that desperately
100%.
needs a healed individual that has the life experiences of what they've been through as well, to be able to identify with them.
Absolutely.
So,
just like you said earlier, hurt people, well, healed people heal people.
Right.
And I think another reason that I adore you, if I'm able to touch on this, is when we were talking about victims become victimizers, and that pedophilia is not a sexual orientation. And if we could just dig a little deeper and understand the mind of a pedophile, really understand the mind of a pedophile. So that means coming at it with a no judgment, even though deep down I'm not gonna even say what I want to do to them, but but looking at that, we can't fix it until we know it. It's like we need to know the blueprint of what's going on in their mind. And if you dig deeper, it's usually becomes, my husband beat the fuck out of me because he hated his mother, and he hated women, and he's hated every woman, and he's beat every woman, and he had a lot of issues, and he numbed himself with alcohol, and then when he would drink, he would make poor decisions, and a hurt person hurt me. And then I hurt my daughter by not healing correctly. And if I could help, and we can help somebody time collapse and not make those poor choices, running to prescription drugs and alcohol and broken relationships, another pimp, whatever. Let's be real. NPC is full of a bunch of daddy issues, rape victims, and they don't even know that they're being groomed again.
No.
And
not just that, not even just that organization, but fitness and the modeling and everything. There's a healthy level of it, and then there's a very toxic level of it. And to your point of helping the people that are preying on the victims, I've talked about it, and like I told you earlier, people think that I'm crazy for...
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is a tough pill to swallow. But, in the research that I have done on the psychology of predators, they are just victims themselves. So identifying that component of things and then setting into motion a path of healing for them as well, to be able to identify with them themselves, their own victimization, and how they were abused, and how that morphed into them being a predator and an abuser themselves, It's a matter of breaking the cycle. We have to break the cycle somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, my goal is to start with them as children, which is why we are going to bring to fruition the Holistic Wellness Rehabilitation Center for sex trafficked victims and survivors with a focus on children. But, you know, again, to your point, giving them the skill set, they need tangible tools that they can take home with them to propel that self-healing when they don't have anybody there to hold their hand and walk them through that. They need to feel empowered by being given those tools that they can use in everyday life or use in the middle of the night when they wake up with night terrors and
Yes.
Flashbacks. So when we're working with these children, we're shifting the course of that generational cycle of abuse, victim to abuser, because so many, and
Not to interrupt you though, if they don't become the abuser, they'll either marry an abuser or coexist with an abuser, and God forbid they have children, then those children are victimized by that person or that person or that person, and it's this, you know, cycle. And that's why when you said domestic violence and human trafficking, they're in this unhealthy marriage, and a lot of people don't realize that it's just violence all the way around. No matter if it's physical or sexual,
emotional,
it's all
whatever.
It's all
it is
bad.
all connected. And so I feel, you know, we'll touch on this more in a different podcast, but going into healing these children before it becomes imprinted in them and then having to resurface as an adult, healing a child is much
We're
easier.
more resilient.
Absolutely.
We're pure,
much easier
our
than
brains.
trying to erase that timeline of what you've lived your entire life believing about yourself. If we can change that pattern as working with them as children,
Yes.
we will change the course, and that downward.
Girl, we're going to be changing the world is what we're going to be doing, so they can't pass that crap down to
but then
another
also
generation. Or
not forgetting the people that are currently abusing right now.
Yeah.
You know, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous.
Yeah,
They're all helping people that are coping, that are covering it up with something else. The abusers are just covering up their own pain and fears and insecurities and traumas by abusing. That's all they know. That's what they were groomed to know. So
we're not excusing it by any means. That's not what. But if we can understand it on a much deeper level, not a superficial level, not like, oh, cure to pedophilia is death. Deep down, that's how I feel.
Yes.
But who am I?
Right.
You know, I have made catastrophic mistakes in my life and damaged and damaged my own, both of my children. One's a bonus child and one is mine. And, you know, but at the same time, and this is where the Coach V comes in, but my children have learned so much by watching me
Absolutely.
plummet to the bottom and then go through those valleys to go to the mountaintops.
Right.
And I'm just no victim mentality anywhere. So the, you know, perpetrator's not allowed to be a victim. The victim's not allowed to be a victim. We're not allowed to be victims. And right now we live in society where everyone's trying to out-victim each other.
Yeah.
Why don't we just focus on our issues and stay in our lane? This is our lane. I can't identify with anything else.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I was put on earth to do, and this is why I became a makeup artist and why I became a personal trainer. It wasn't actually about the way I looked. It was that it saved my life. Mm-hmm. I would have drank myself to death, done something. I would have done something to hurt myself. I have dabbled with killing myself. I have been in the lowest of places. So God is going to use that in us together. And when people meet us, first thing that people say, what is that? Oh, your energy. You can't fake that.
Every time.
You can't fake that. You can post a polished, filtered picture, but you can't filter energy. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe, you know, you're brand new and I'm coming in and we're going to get in this, you know, whatever it is that we're doing. But I truly believe people will want to invest in helping these people because I think we are different from the rest. And I believe our intentions are pure and multiple phone calls. And when you were doing your protest and I was doing my protest, we were both, you know, love bombing each other from each IG account, and it wasn't about us. It wasn't.
Well, because it has nothing to do with us.
It doesn't.
It has everything to do with us using what we've been through to help others, and that's what it is. That's simply where it is. And I think this is a good place to wrap this one up and look forward to the next podcast with you. But
yes.
That being said, I think it's just a matter of time for everything that we're doing to continue to be illuminated and to come to light as to just how much our hearts are here for the children. And regardless of any moves that we're making, I was telling Vanessa, I'm like, I feel like I'm playing a game of chess. Like I have all of these chess pieces out, and I am just trying to, my checkmate is to put predators in a place where they won't harm children anymore, and to get children in a place where they won't be harmed anymore. So those are my goals. And it came to me a couple days ago, I think. I look at it now that the predators are now the prey. Because...
Wait, can you say that again?
The predators are now the prey.
And they are.
And
We're coming for you.
We that's the mission. That's the goal. And some of you probably know a little bit about what we're building foundationally here with our IT team and the investigations and special ops divisions. But ultimately, we're working hand in hand with law enforcement right now. We're working hand in hand with the local government and politicians so that we can all come together and be on the same page, which we pretty much are. I mean, there's been no pushback, and there is nothing but uplifting conversations that are taking place right now.
Absolutely.
And everybody is on this same path, and it's actually very heartwarming because you never know. You hear about the corruption.
Oh, yeah.
You never know, but being in Southern California, one of the worst places in not just the United States but in the world for trafficking, with our proximity to Mexico, and then the corridor along the 15 freeway here, going into Orange County, going into Riverside and San Bernardino County, into the desert cities, and then right up the 15 freeway all the way to Las Vegas, which is one of the most concentrated places for trafficking. And they use those strip clubs and stuff as a cover.
Of course they do. They gotta funnel their money somewhere.
There's so many people that are trafficked into that environment of strip clubs and prostitution, and so many people turn their cheek, and it's so taboo that you don't look deeper into what's really going on. But another podcast. But ultimately, where I'm going with this is that so many people are on the same page right now.
They are.
And we're being surrounded. I can't tell you how many people have come into my office and have been handed to me or introduced to me without anything but God working. And
that's how I found you.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody I train was like, "Oh girl, have you heard of her?" And I was like, "No." So she must have been shadow banned or something, because I follow like-minded people. I would have followed you if I saw your account. And here we are. It's so crazy.
It is. It's crazy. But God is working. God is moving. We are covering a lot of ground every single day and making so much progress. And there's lives that are already being changed drastically. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your space with me today and being here and standing alongside me in this, because I keep saying, if we can come together, we can do so much more. So I thank you for your heart and everything that you've been through, because I know.
Thank you. I gave you a little fraction of it, but I know we have a million podcasts to do,
so
save that for another day.
So thank you all. As always, I can't tell you how much I appreciate and how grateful I am for your support and your encouragement, because as you know, this is very difficult work, even though I keep saying I have that backbone to deal with this, with everything that I've been through. I know that you feel the same, but
rough. Both of our spouses have felt it. Our kids have felt it.
Yep.
I mean, even at work, when I'm at work, I'm still thinking about kids and what I can do and where I can invest money and how can I make a difference. And so I get it. It's all
consuming, but
I'm
at
brushing
the
my
same time,
teeth thinking about it.
Absolutely.
It's like crazy.
It's in our DNA now, and it's nothing about that is bad, because there's so much good that's coming from it. And there's so much positive. And like I keep saying, I know a lot of you are having a really hard time in absorbing this and processing it. And just all I can say is be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Allow yourself time to process that. Give yourself the breaks. Find your balance. Make sure that the dark is balanced with the light and love and happiness and joy. If you have to go love on your children or on a close friend or on your spouse or
an animal, nature
is healthy, so healing.
Yes.
Honestly, yes.
Sage
nutrition,
yourself.
whatever it is where you find that
Yes.
peace, where you can breathe and just regroup and ground yourself. Do that. Please do it for yourself. Do it for everyone around you. Do it for us. And
Do it for the babies.
I wish you all well. Thank you so much for being a part of this today.
Me.
Sending love to all of you guys. And we will be back next week with another podcast. Bye, guys. Thank you.